everybody, and welcome to another episode of the It's the Pictures podcast. This is episode 195, and I am your host, Max Colville. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Evan Crean. Hi, Evan.
Hey, Max. How's it going?
Well, it's going great, can't complain too much. I mean, I'd complain about the weather, but that's kind of boring. You know, the summer season has kicked off.
It's New England for you.
The summer season, as far as movies, has kicked off. We have Memorial Day weekend, right? We'll have an update on our summer movie game. Now we have some movies finally coming out, right?
Yeah, I got a couple from my list, at least one from your list, from our picks that have come out so far. Not too shabby.
Yeah, and we got more and more coming. I guess like this weekend in particular, it was pretty good for the box office. We'll save that. We'll curb that for a little bit to get to the latest news. And in the latest news, the Cannes Film Festival just wrapped up, Evan. This is famously like one of the more like international film festivals. We've covered it here on the It's the Pictures podcast a few times. And we've kind of pared back on the coverage because like it's tough to really talk about films that aren't coming out forever.
Yeah, it's true.
But there were some interesting winners. Have you had a chance to look at the list yet, Evan?
I'm looking at it right now, but I think I'm not familiar with a lot of these titles. Like, this festival is just too cool for me, I guess. Don't usually know like what these movies are until like later in the year when they've played a couple more festivals.
Right. So like something that stood out to me is like this movie called The Secret Agent. This was directed by like the director of like Bacurau, which I thought was a really interesting international film that came out a few years ago. And apparently this one won Best Actor and what else did it win? It won
Best Director.
Yeah, Best Director. So I'm really excited for that movie. It's called The Secret Agent. And the other ones that like I was personally interested in right off the bat was Sentimental Value. This is the new movie from the director of The Worst Person in the World. And
okay.
Joachim Trier, I think his name is, and he's reteamed once again with Renata Rivite, I think her name is. And
I never learned how to pronounce her name. I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah, so apparently that movie's really good, and that won second place, the Grand Prix. And the Palme d'Or went to It Was Just an Accident, the newest film by acclaimed Iranian filmmaker Jafar Panahi. And I guess this was his first film that like he was able to make like not like imprisoned or banned from making film in like 20 years.
Oh, since he escaped did he escape from Iran?
I think like finally like he had served his sentence or something. They finally said that he was allowed to like make film in some
movies
fashion.
again.
Yeah. But famously he's been releasing like some movies throughout like the last decade or so where like they're almost like convert movies. Like I guess like one of the ones I saw was called Taxi, where like he's a taxi driver. But I've always been fascinated by his work, and so this one's supposedly really good. So I guess Neon once again like just went on a spending spree, Evan, and they acquired a whole bunch of films in addition to having Sentimental Value like right at the beginning of the festival. So they also picked up It Was Just an Accident during the festival, so they could say that they're 6 for 6.
Yeah, I mean, Neon's been making some great acquisitions over the last couple of years for sure. They have a really strong slate of releases. And I see here in the news that also that Mubi was in pretty strong competition with Neon, kind of duking it out over some releases, but that Neon was like coming out on top.
Yeah, like that. It seems like Neon, like I guess they like to release these Palme d'Or winners, whereas I imagine something like Titane didn't make a lot of money, but certainly something like Anora probably made them a ton of money, even though it cost them a lot to promote the film, but to acquire and bring it to Best Picture must have been a worthy investment for them.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that that definitely helped. When having all those Oscar wins last year, I'm sure has done a lot to help their bottom line over there.
So yeah, I don't know when we'll get to see some of these. I mean, Neon has plans with their slate, whatever they want to do. Obviously, if they see some of these movies are Oscar players or what have you, I'm sure we'll see them before the end of the year. Probably play some other festivals. That's how they roll out these films and repeat showings at either like Telluride or TIFF heading into the end of the year.
Yeah, and I know I'll be on the lookout for their great looking screener box set that they release every award season. It's always fun to see the interesting designs that they come up with for those.
Yeah, it's like a film critic's like almost prized possession. I wouldn't say like
Yep.
we're influenced by it because I'm certainly not. I mean, there's years where my film of the year did not come from Neon, and I think like last year
Yeah.
it wasn't a Nora wasn't my film of the year. I forget what it was. I know like Brutalist was like two or three. Oh yeah, it was Dune Part Two. So just because I really liked that adaptation, but uh, no, I just like the box sets, and it's nice that Neon kind of champions their whole slate of films and makes them easy for people to watch. I think there was also like a conversation about like how since they sent the DVD screeners, they were like the only company that still sent physical screeners, and so maybe people were like, "Oh, this is easy. I don't have to insert like 40 codes in order to watch a screener."
Yeah, I know it certainly made things easy last year, and it's fun. Like it's fun to like peruse the pack and see what's in there and see the design, and it's memorable, you know? It's sticky.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the Cannes Film Festival for this year. I guess keep an eye out for some of those films. I certainly will be. There was other stuff that was buzzy that that showed up during the festival. So if you want, there's plenty of sites that have the full award slate, and you can add them to your wish list for later this year. Evan, I didn't talk about
Mhm.
what our topic is for this week, and it's going to be the legendary assassin, John Wick.
Yes. The Baba Yaga.
Yeah, I was rewatching the first one in anticipation of this, Evan, and like they have a line in it,
Mhm.
and they're like, "He's not the boogeyman. He's the man who you send to kill the boogeyman."
Yep. It's true. There's a lot of really great lines, especially in the first one when you don't really know who John Wick is yet. You don't really know the whole like universe that exists around him. And so everyone is just really afraid of John Wick. It's great. Everyone's reactions like I think it was like the mob boss in it says something like, I watched him kill a man with a
Yeah,
pencil or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so we're gonna do
It's a
we're,
lot of
we're
fun.
gonna do the John Wick quadrilogy this week. But before we get into that, there was news about its spin-off film Ballerina hitting the socials the other day, and unfortunately, it's
Mhm.
not good news. At least as far as like Lionsgate's uh, promotion of the film goes.
Yeah, it's a little bit inside baseball, but very it's unusual because it's the kind of thing that like no studio has really done before. So listeners, there's this thing called an embargo if you're not familiar. And so what they'll tell critics is like, "Hey, like don't post about this movie, don't review it for by X date." And it's always been kind of like an unspoken agreement that we just say, "Okay, all right, you're giving me the opportunity to see this movie, so I will wait to comment on it until this date that you've preferred." Not everybody follows them, and most of the time I would say studios aren't really like hunting people down if they don't follow the embargo. But this particular embargo scenario is truly bizarre and I would say unseen. Basically, they said that you are allowed to talk on social media with spoiler free enthusiasm, and I'm putting air quotes around this, starting on May 22nd, but that quote critical social sentiment and formal reviews were embargoed until June 4th, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, Max, the movie comes out on June 6th, right?
Yeah, I think that's the Friday, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and so this is just truly bizarre because often listeners, we're seeing movies a week to 2 weeks or possibly more in advance, and that's studios like to give us ample time to review things and see them and think about them and talk about them, and usually like the embargo is pretty much just like maybe the day before it released or a couple days before, but they don't police things to this degree. And I think that's the thing that has a lot of critics like bent out of shape, is being like, wait a minute, I'm not allowed to post negative reactions, only positive reactions are okay. Like, this is just insane, Lionsgate. Like, what the heck are you trying to do here? This is like unethical for you to ask me to do this. Like, I'm trying to just do my job here, which is like tell my opinion and rate this movie and try and like talk to people about whether they should see this. But Max, I know you do a lot of like writing and stuff. Uh, so what do you think about this whole news?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of crazy, right? Because the idea that you could post something that was positive about the film, but not anything like negative about it. Are they that worried about what's going to come out of this film? It says more about the quality of the film than maybe you want to think about, because if they were really
Mm-hmm.
gun ho about it and they felt strongly about it, wouldn't they say like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, post your social thoughts 2 weeks before, we think we have a winner on our hands." But no, they're so worried about the reception of the movie that they're really trying to like mold it before people get to see it.
Yeah, it's truly bizarre. And one critic that I follow, Jordan Crucchiola, she was just saying like, I don't even know why they're doing this. Like she's like, I loved this movie. I think it's great. Like, what are they so worried about? And I haven't read a lot of other reactions, but it's not good press to have people who are gonna be reviewing your movie and talking about it bent out of shape over some stupid rules that you're trying to do. I mean, like another thing, often when a movie is when the studio is worried about how bad it is, they just don't even straight up don't even screen it for critics. They don't even give people an opportunity. They just, if you want to review it, you just have to go and like buy a ticket or go, watch it the day it comes out. And so it's like, really, I don't know. I don't like it. I mean, thankfully I'm not reviewing this movie, so I'm okay. But I would be really frustrated if I was reviewing this movie.
Right, and some of the studio reports of it is that, yeah, the shoot was a little troubled, and they had Chad Stileski, the director of the four previous John Wick movies, come in and do some reshoots, and Keanu Reeves has a scene in the movie kind of further tying it to John Wick to make sure that like it piggybacks on that success. This one, of course,
Mm-hmm.
stars Anna de Armas, so she has some star power on her own, but maybe Lionsgate was just like, yeah, we really need this to like be as successful as a John Wick movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say something possibly controversial. I don't think Ana de Armas is a good actress. So I could see if I'm a studio exec being worried about this movie hanging a movie on her, but I know a lot of people really like her, so I'm sure that part of it is probably fine. And yeah, who the heck knows why they're so worried about this?
Yeah, I think she had that like one sequence in I think the most recent Bond movie, and people maybe saw that and were hoping that Ballerina would be all that all the time. And I haven't seen
Mm-hmm.
Ballerina yet, but that would certainly be my expectation going in. But before we get into our full flesh John Wick conversation, we're gonna do a update on the summer movie game. If you remember, a few episodes ago, Evan and I picked our movies for the summer to see which which of us with five movies would be able to win the domestic box office by the end of the summer. Evan, of course, he picked Superman, Thunderbolts, Mission Impossible, um, the final Reckoning, How to Train Your Dragon, and Karate Kid's Legends. Whereas I picked
Mm-hmm.
Jurassic World Rebirth, Lilo and Stitch, Fantastic Four First Steps, F1 the movie, and Elio. And now, as of 5:25, heading into the end of Memorial Day weekend, Evan has two movies open: Thunderbolts and Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible, of course, will probably get some extra Monday boosts thanks to the holiday. But as of
Mm-hmm.
today, he stands at 234 million. Whereas Lilo and Stitch came barreling out of the gate with a successful Memorial Day weekend on its own and took in 145 million. We'll see probably by next weekend how these really play out. I don't even know what's
Yeah.
opening on on the 31st, right? It's just I think that they're making room for this stuff.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I know the ballerina is still
Yeah, 2 weeks, yeah.
still lays off. But yeah. Yeah, we'll see how it's going. It's not going terrible for me so far, but you've only had one movie come out, and your one movie is performing really well. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks and months as this more of our movies start to open.
Yeah, I'm feeling less certain about my last two movies. Now, I think like F1 recently changed its title to F1 the movie because I don't know, there's like another F1 property coming out from Netflix maybe, or I don't know, but
Hmm. Weird.
yeah. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know why they're changing the marketing this far into it. I don't know." And
Mm-hmm.
I've heard nothing about Elio, so the buzz about that is just dire. So I'm not feeling great about those. So maybe I'll need my top three to really fuel me through the summer. But we'll see how it goes.
Yep. There's still plenty of time.
All right, let's go to our discussion about John Wick. This is about the
Mm-hmm.
four John Wick movies. A series that almost didn't see the light of day. This is I watched a documentary, Evan, leading up to our conversation. It came out like on VOD. I want to say the beginning of May, and it's called Wick is Pain, and it goes
Mm.
into the background of making these four movies. It mostly spends a lot of time on the development of the first movie, while just kind of touching on the later three.
Yeah, this is I haven't seen this documentary, so I'm eager to hear some of the insights that you learned from it.
Yeah, I guess like to just do an overview of John Wick before we get into uh, the really nitty gritty of it, where like Keanu and his former stunt double Chad Selesky, and also director David Leitch, the three of them really teamed up to bring the script of John Wick to life, and it was centered on this revenge story where this man who had lost his wife to some illness, probably cancer, receives a dog as a present after her passing, and the dog is supposed to be like a gift from her to kind of remember her by.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to get gasoline with his really nice Mustang, and these like Russian punks see him, and they decide, oh, we're gonna follow this guy home, and we're gonna steal his car.
Yep.
But while stealing his car, they decide to also kill his dog.
Big mistake.
Yeah, and then goes through a violent series of revenge in order to get back at these Russian mobsters who took his little doggy away from him.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the guy who does it is like the shithead son of this, big time Russian mobster who John Wick used to work for.
Yeah,
And as we mentioned a couple minutes ago, when he realizes that his son, messed with John Wick, he's like, "Oh fuck."
right.
Like, oh
He's
god.
almost like
What has my idiot son done?
he's like almost like kissing his son goodbye. He's like, you don't know what you've done. Like this guy is going to come for you, and he's going to kill you now.
Yeah. And I remember there's like a great scene where he even kind of calls John Wick on the phone and he's like, "Can we like maybe not do this,
Yeah.
please, John?" But he doesn't do a good enough job of apologizing because John Wick is like, "Oh hell no, I'm not. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for everybody."
Right, and when this film came out in 2014, the documentary goes into this in greater detail. The Wick is Pain, the new documentary. It's like that movie was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be like this training ground for the directors because they were both stunt directors, David Leitch and Chad Stahelski. Stahelski had worked with Reeves previously on the Matrix movies, and he'd been in kind of as a stunt double for a long time. He talks in the documentary how he was even coming up with Brandon Lee at the same time when Brandon passed away on the set of The Crow. He was actually the double to help finish the scenes in that movie. So he said that was kind of strange to
Mm.
double for his late friend. But they kind of were directing second unit shots a lot and doing a lot of the action anyway. So they were excited to find a script that they could do the whole thing. And noticeably in the movie, they were saying like how normally directors have a problem with the action and they can do like the quiet like world
Mm-hmm.
building shots pretty easily, but for them it was backwards because they were like, how do we film like John Wick drinking a coffee as opposed to John Wick like fighting and throwing punches?
Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, so the development of the movie continued, and they ended up getting. They were like starting production, and like one of their financiers pulled out, and they didn't really know what to expect from that. And in the documentary, they go into more detail that actress Ava Longoria, who's a friend of Keanu Reeves, pitched in the additional 6.5 million right at the start of production in order to get the film across the finish line. So I thought that was pretty funny. Some of the other things,
Yeah, that's a really interesting tidbit that's come up in the last like year since like the 10-year anniversary of the first John Wick.
yeah, and like some of the other things that were kind of cool in the documentary, they were saying like when they did the first test screening of the movie, it was like deadly quiet when the dog died, and like some people walked out. They're like, I'm not gonna watch this movie. Um, so like
Yeah,
people,
it's a bold choice.
yeah, because like, people are like, how you go with like killing a dog in a movie? It's like I know like some people were like, oh, is that the movie where he kills a dog and they're just turned off, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's that whole website doesthedogdie.com. You know, people watch movies and report whether animals are killed or their animals are abused. You can look up all that stuff and you know, people have that to avoid movies because they don't want to watch animals die on screen.
Right, and so that was another interesting thing about it. And I guess like one thing that the other thing that I thought was fascinating, Evan, that apparently David Leitch had come across some kind of short or some kind of example of gun fu, this like the really famous like close quarters gunplay that John Wick would become known for. And first he presented
Mm-hmm.
it to Jason Statham, and Statham was maybe considered to use some of that action in some of his movies, and you can see some like genesis of it in the 2012 movie Safe. But like Statham didn't think like
Mm-hmm.
that was really his style as an action star. So
Huh.
I guess
Interesting.
it was Keanu's gain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gun fu is like a hallmark of the John Wick movies, and it's a very fun style of action with you know, like you said, combining close quarters, hand to hand fighting with gunplay, and it makes for a really interesting and fun action scene. And but I get Jason Statham is a very physical actor in his like he's like doing lots of like acrobatics and all kinds of craziness. So I could see why he was kind of like shying away from that.
Right, and so John Wick 1 is really just this classic revenge story. You have John Wick do his thing, and his story's over. When the movie played at Fantastic Fest and kind of blew the doors off there, I mean, they kind of expected like that was going to be a favorable spot for them, given it being a genre film and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But when the movie ended up opening on 1,200 screens and made bank, they realized it was time for a sequel. And for all intents and purposes, John Wick 2 is really when John Wick becomes John Wick. Uh,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of the world building begins.
Yeah, exactly. Like the movie leans very heavily into the world that John Wick exists in. So like in the first film, you know of the hotel called the Continental, which is like a hotel where all the assassins hang out, and there's very specific rules of like you can't conduct business on the grounds and this and that. And chapter 2 is like, okay, let's explore the Continental. Let's talk about all the services you can get there, like custom weapons, custom suits with Kevlar, tailored into them. There's this whole world of assassins and this group called the High Table, which runs this whole worldwide network of assassins. And John Wick is just one really famous assassin in this larger world. You have these things called markers, which are things for like pledging your loyalty for someone else for doing a favor. There's all kinds of like special currency that you use in this world to pay for things and to cash in on the favors and whatnot. And I forget some of the other stuff, but yeah, as you mentioned, it is very heavy world building. And I think for me personally, story wise, it's my favorite of the John Wicks because it does that. It just builds such an intricate, fun world for John Wick to exist in, and I really like those aspects of it. In addition to it being a fun action movie, it is also like a fun, interesting story.
Right, like I had forgotten that William Dafoe was in John Wick 1 until like I revisited it the other night. But there's some,
Me too.
yeah. As the series goes on, they of course attract more talent as people become more familiar with what John Wick is, and they get excited to collaborate with Keanu in this series. And the second one has like
Mm-hmm.
actors like Common and come into the movie, which is a pretty fun sequence. I mean, for me, John Wick isn't just about like the extreme violence. It's also about the kind of comedy that it like winks with the whole time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but just for example, in like I guess in chapter 2, when Common and Keanu are like just like kind of exchanging pistol shots at each other, like looking over their shoulders like casually. And I'm like, certainly that's low on the ridiculousness of Keanu Reeves's John Wick world, but certainly something that I
Mm-hmm.
think of often.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like Common as a foil for Keanu in John Wick 2. They're kind of back and forth. The kind of cat and mouse game that they have with each other is a lot of fun to watch. And like I don't know. I mean I like Common. I don't love him in a lot of things that he's in, but I really liked him in this movie specifically. I thought he was kind of like doing exactly what needed to be done.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like they're fighting, and they like go down some stairs and stuff like that, and they're like at the steps of the Continental, and it's like it's goo, right? Like they had to stop their fighting right there and like just like kind of relax for for now.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that John Wick 2 also introduces the character of the Bowery King played by Lawrence Fishburne, who's kind of like he's like a head of like assassins that like disguise themselves as homeless people and have this whole literally underground network that they do. Um which I think I can't remember I think in the third one includes Jason Mantzoukas, like the comedian Jason Mantzoukas is like TikTok Mr. Wick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and two,
But
of
yeah,
course,
I think it's
yeah, two has like series mainstays like Ian McShane and everything, and he's quoted in the documentary with saying like that the idea of the markers is just like wonderful bullshit because they just they just like thought up this whole world and all these rules that these people have to exist in, and it's just a
Mm-hmm.
means to continue the story.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the late great Lance Reddick in these
Mm-hmm.
movies as the the concierge working for Ian McShane, and I just think every scene that he's just an absolute delight to watch. As is Ian McShane, he's very funny. He has this kind of way about him. The fact that he calls John Wick Jonathan all the
Yeah.
time, like, oh yes, Jonathan, Jonathan. Just the way he says it is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. And like the Continental becomes even though there's like other branches of the Continental, and certainly that kind of is what played off. There was also a mini series which neither Evan and I watched, called the Continental, which kind of there's other hotels certainly, but it always feels like this one is the audience's home base, and like they side with Ian McShane and everything he does, and
Mm-hmm.
um that's maybe why when chapter 3 ends up coming around, that's kind of a shocker. But um Evan, when you think about John Wick movies, like what kind of draws you into these movies? Is it just that you know that they're going to be like nonstop action movies? Is it because of being a fan of Keanu? um what 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 is your expectation going into a John Wick movie?
Well, I think it's a mix of things. I mean, I really like Keanu Reeves, and I love him as this character, John Wick. So there's that the fun of seeing him play this really entertaining character. I know that it's going to be really, intense, off the chain kind of action, and I like that each movie is it seems to be like trying to like one up itself and just
Yeah.
doing how can we get crazier and crazier with some of our action sequences and how can we make them even more stylized and whatnot. So that's always fun about watching them, and it's the mythology as we were just talking about, this whole world that they've built of the Continental and the High Table and all of the rules and these old rules that seem to govern this world and the currency, and that is always a lot of fun to watch too. And also the foils for John Wick, all the people he's squaring off against, whether that's, Common in John Wick 2 or in 3 when he's squaring off with Mark Dacascos, or 4 when it's Donnie Yen.
Yeah.
They pick really fun actors to play off of John Wick and to be the person that's kind of like chasing after him. So and it creates this, I think, a genuine sense of danger because, as you know, John Wick, he everyone is afraid of him, and he's the master assassin, and he could kill a whole room full of men, but there's usually at least one other person in the movie that can give him a serious run for his money, and he's not gonna he's not gonna kill that person easily. He's gonna have to like get his butt kicked up and down, and maybe it's a little bit of luck to end up winning the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, like, I appreciate how much that the gum fu and everything, the choreography that goes into it, and
Yes.
just the preparation that Keanu does for these roles, and that of the whole stunt team. Uh, it's kind of insane. I know, like, the third movie begins with a reflection off a building where like they're playing like I think like an old Harold Lloyd movie, and it just sets the tone to think of these movies with the physicality of the comedians of like the 1920s era, like Chaplin and Lloyd and Buster Keaton and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that kind of thought that goes into it. Like they know who they're kind of leaning on to make these movies. But certainly
Yeah, absolutely.
each one grew substantially, Evan. Like going back to watch like John Wick 1 the other night, I was like, this almost feels like a different franchise, given how shoestring budget it is compared to what we ultimately get with Chapter 4.
Right. Yeah, it feels almost tame and very reined in by comparison to what we end up with chapter 4, which I saw very recently, so it's definitely more fresh in my mind.
Yeah, so before we get into Chapter 4, which is I'd love to talk to you about that one. Chapter 3 um continued John's kind of running away from the high table, because at the end of 2 he commits a like a moral sin of the high table, where he kills someone inside of the Continental, and all of a
Yep.
sudden every assassin is targeting John Wick.
Right. Yeah, and in this world when you're on the outs, you're excommunicado. It's just like they make a whole thing about, John Wick, excommunicado, and then you see this like agency with these like, tattooed women typing on computers and updating the bounty, and it's just there's something so entertaining about that piece of it as well, that there's this whole like infrastructure of people like powering the back end of this like organization of assassins.
Or there's just like so many assassins that wherever John Wick's moving is like there's just, at least in this world, that there's assassins everywhere.
Yeah, they're literally everywhere.
And there's some really fantastic um, sequences in that movie. There's like this really narrow
Mm-hmm.
corridor where there's like all these knives, and they realize like, oh, there's no way out, there's nowhere for you to go, and then like, but they're literally in a place that has like a zillion knives, and so they're like chucking knives at each other, which is pretty great. And John Wick on a horse, and
Mm-hmm.
um
Oh yeah, that's a great scene.
um yeah, there's a lot of fun uh sequences in 3, and it left the door open for 4 with like, it seems like Ian McShane kind of like turns on Wick at the end in a way, and Wick is left for dead, and he just desperately wants his freedom from the high table, because like now since he's gotten into that trouble, he just kind of wants his life back if he can have it.
Yeah, and then 3 also I wanted to mention has that amazing sequence where he links up with Halle Berry, who has these two Belgian
Yeah, I
Malinois
love that
dogs that she
sequence.
has trained, and they just wreck this entire. I don't even know what to describe. There's this whole like area where they're shooting and killing people, and the dogs are running and jumping and killing guys, and it is chef's kiss in terms of action.
Yeah, I think that like in the documentary Wick is Pain, they touch about that sequence a little bit, and they're like, oh, apparently they had like 5 dogs trained, and they brought them there by boat, and like one of the dogs when it got there just didn't like it, and so it wouldn't perform. So they were down to 4 dogs, and then I guess there was like a lot of cats. So the dogs wouldn't perform with the cats around, so they almost had to like build a cat hotel so that the cats would like go to this one place and like leave the dogs alone. Um,
That's really funny.
yeah. But I love that sequence. It's, I don't think I laughed as hard in a John Wick as I did with that, because it's just like wild seeing these dogs like trained to attack and like just bite guys nuts off. Right? It's kind of
Yeah,
ridiculous.
and like run and just jump like these insane like heights to reach guys.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm glad you mentioned that one. John Wick Chapter 4 came out like 2 years ago now, and was promised
Mm-hmm.
as the last of the franchise. Lionsgate has the owner of the IP has pretty much alluded that they want a Chapter 5 desperately. So much as to say that
Mm-hmm.
it's on their radar. We'll see if that actually comes to pass. But that seems like they want to be in the
Yeah.
John Wick business for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, would Keanu Reeves do it again, and how would they frame that in the story? Because it's kind of hard at the end of John Wick to do another of John Wick Chapter 4 to do another John Wick movie.
Right. Um, but yeah, as you mentioned, Chapter 4 has Donnie Yen in it. That was like the big addition where I guess the bad guy isn't really a master of himself, a master himself. He's just like head honcho of the high table, and he like has some kind of manipulation on Donnie Yen to make him uh, get back into the fray. And Yen's character is like a blind assassin who has a lot of tricks up his sleeves.
Right. Yeah. And him and John Wick are, of course, old pals. And he really doesn't want to do this. But as you mentioned, Bill Skarsgård, who is, the Marquis, he's like the new guy running the high table and is like wants to take out John Wick. He's, basically blackmails Donnie Yen into working for him. Um, yeah, and that's kind of like the premise is like John Wick is trying to do whatever he can to escape the high table in this world of assassins, and he is like gonna challenge the Marquis to like a duel to the death. And that's how, if he wins, that's how he can get out of the everything.
Yeah,
But
and this
there's a lot of ground he's got to cover before that.
yeah, and this one has like I know like I said like they continue to add like really fantastic actors, but like John Wick Chapter 4 like I really think takes the cake. Like this is like a humongous cast of like really recognizable
Yeah,
actors and
it
actresses.
is.
You have like not only do you have like Lawrence Fishburne returning and the late Lance Reddick appears, Ian McShane of course, but like you have people.
Hmm.
I really like Clancy Brown like appearing in this, like because in Highlander and
Oh yeah,
so much of like Highlander has all these rules too, and it feels like a very much mirror of that story.
Clancy Brown was a nice touch to add to this one. He's so big and imposing, and lately he's got that kind of like long hair, long beard kind of thing that just makes him even more, I don't know, appropriate to be the kind of person who plays a character named the Harbinger.
Yeah, there's some other additions like Shamir Anderson plays Tracker. There is Emmy winner Hiroyuki Sanada, who plays one of John Wick's old friends, who's also the owner of another Continental hotel. His daughter, Akira,
Hmm.
played by musician Rina Sawayama, has a big role in this one, and apparently they're also approaching a spin-off with her in the lead.
Cool.
But Evan, you told me you just caught up with Chapter 4. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience watching it? I know you said you
Yeah.
split it into two parts, right?
Yeah, because it is long. It is very long. It's like almost 3 hours. It's 2 hours 49 minutes, and yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I was actually bored
Mm.
for a good chunk of the movie, particularly the first like hour and a half. I think I found myself wondering like, do I even want to finish this? I'm so bored because
Mm.
it just felt like so much of the same thing, especially the part you're mentioning at the Japan,
Mm-hmm.
the Japanese continental, and I think is it Osaka where it
I
is,
think so.
or Tokyo, and yeah, it just feels like we've seen it all before. We're just long drawn out action scenes of all the same BS, and then I felt like somewhere toward the middle, it kind of shifted and got interesting again for me, and there's this whole thing where like John Wick has to go kill some guy so he can become part of the Ruska Roma again. So he can get them to challenge Bill Skarsgård to a fight to the death. And that whole part was really interesting. It starts with like a poker game
Mm-hmm.
where all these people who want to kill each other are squaring off in this like really amazing nightclub fight sequence where everyone is dancing. There's rain and water and neon, and I mean, that I have to say that's one thing about John Wick 4 is that even though I feel like it's like way too long and bloated and just like whatever in places, it looks amazing. Like they just leaned into these like really bright, intense colors and like really just gorgeous locations, and it's very like fun to look at even at points where I felt like, oh man, god, this movie, let's move it along. But it did get a lot better toward like the middle from that fight scene on, especially because we get to a point where the like impending duel is happening, but there's an even bigger bounty on John Wick's head, and he has to survive until sunrise, and there's hundreds or thousands of people trying to kill him, all in Paris, and he's got to fight his way through Paris to get to the Sacre Coeur, like cathedral where this duel is going to take place. So I found myself liking it a lot more as it went on, especially as it kind of built to the grand finale. But curious what you think of John Wick 4, Max.
Yeah, I definitely think that like had I tried to watch like all four of these in like even a week, I'd probably be like exhausted. I think even watching
Mm-hmm.
when I saw chapter 4 in the theaters, I was game the whole movie, Evan, but like I think right before that finale happens and there's like this announcer that almost like makes a thing like on a loudspeaker saying like, "Oh, John Wick has like this much time, and will you find him?" And that kind of is a nod to like the Warriors movie. I didn't know that at the time because I'd never seen the Warriors, but I've since seen it.
Oh, you never seen the
I have
Warriors?
seen it
Oh
now.
man, Max. Yeah. Okay, cool. Cause yeah, when I was watching, I was like, wow, they're just like totally, leading into. I was like, first I thought it'd be like a small passing reference to the Warriors. I'm like, no, they're just like straight up doing the Warriors. Like we've got the DJ, the woman DJ. We're seeing just like her lips. She's like talking very sensually into the microphone, and even using some of the same language from the Warriors, like calling people boppers and like talking about people like dropped the ball, this or that. And I was enjoying it, but I was certainly surprised that they were going there. Like it kind of makes sense thematically throughout the movies. Like when John Wick is on the run, it's much like the Warriors, and they have everybody going after them, and they got to fight their way. They got to bop their way back to Coney Island, right?
Yeah.
Although thankfully there's no one here clanging bottles with their fingers saying John Wick come out to play, eh?
Yeah, so no, I think like I was like exhausted by like I guess right when the sequence where like Wick is climbing the stairs, and right
Mm-hmm.
before that point we have this like terrific like car action sequence where like they're going around like a famous like building in Paris and riding in circles and
Oh, the Arc de Triomphe.
yeah, and
Yeah.
dodging cars. That's kind of wild. And then like there's a sequence where it's like top down, which looks like a video game uh fight
Oh
sequence.
my god. This most inspired sequence in the movie. Most inspired sequence in the movie. I was truly that's when I hit the I am really into this again, and I'm truly enjoying this movie. Yeah, he's fighting his way through these like up rooms and apartments in Paris, and you like you said, Max, you see this top down overhead view of John Wick moving through the rooms, dodging gunfire, and he's using these like special guns that have incendiary rounds in them. So like when they hit a person, the person bursts into flames, and that was just it looked so cool. It was the kind of thing I'm like, this is why I come to a John Wick movie. Now if I just had like chop like a huge chunk of this movie off and do more inspired sequences like this, then I'm like then this movie goes from like, a B minus C to like, an A.
Right, and I mean that's so much of like this movie is like it sets you up for like that final like I want to say almost 40 minutes of stop action, where then comes the sequence where
Mhm.
Wick is trying to run upstairs and then falls downstairs like repeatedly. It's just like the never-ending staircase, and when
Mhm.
he finally gets to the top, and of course has to have a duel with Donnie Yen's character. Yeah, I mean
Yep.
the movie kind of ties a nice bow on John Wick, right? Where if they
Yep.
want to bow out, that seems like an ending. Like Donnie Yen this character gets kind of what he wanted, and John Wick gets what he wanted, and you could tie a bow on it. For me, Evan, and I'll tell you why I don't buy it even without the mentioning of a John Wick 5. Is like they've spent a lot of these movies um with the mythology of John Wick and like saying like, oh, this is the man that could kill the boogeyman, right? Like he's almost unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly you've just put him through a 40-minute gauntlet of like falling downstairs and like killing a zillion men that like maybe even he would fall to that. But like I don't know. So somehow when I saw that ending, I was like, they've left enough room where like everybody could be faking his ultimate demise, and he's actually just like living, relaxing somewhere. And because I just don't like buy
Yeah,
him being
totally
dead.
could be. Yeah, I guess we'll see.
But yeah, for you, Evan, Keanu Reeves has been an action star in a lot of movies, right? The Matrix, Point Break,
Mm-hmm.
um, Speed, a good amount. Do you think like
Yep.
John Wick has become his signature role, or you think it's still something else?
For me, I think yeah. I mean, I really loved The Matrix. I loved the Matrix movies. I even liked when they, did the Matrix 4,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was fun. But yeah, for me, I feel like Keanu Reeves has pretty much become John Wick in my eyes. And while I love him for being, Neo, I definitely associate him more with John Wick than I do with The Matrix these days. What about you?
Yeah, I know that would probably be like between the two, and like The Matrix was such a seminal movie on my life that I kind of like lean maybe more towards The Matrix. Um, but I love that he has found certainly another role to kind of like make his own, and what why there were certainly roles in there that like you're like, oh, is Keanu just gonna be like this guy who was in a couple great movies? I think he had Constantine in there, which has its fans. Um, but it really feels like John Wick is something that is like become super synonymous with him, right? Like almost at the same time, it felt like those Liam Neeson Taken movies came out, but like where like the violence is kind of similar and like the revenge idea is similar, but like I think like John Wick like totally overshadows the Taken movies.
Yeah, it's far superior in its action, the way it's shot, edited, the way it looks, especially as they went on. Like I would say probably like 3 and 4, they particularly lean into the aesthetics of like how can I make like a really good action movie and a really good looking movie. They seem to like find like a really interesting balance of locations, lighting, vibe that they create. Even though, like I said, chapter 4 is very like uneven throughout, it looks great. The locations, the lighting, the just like whole thing that they're laying down, it feels, it really brings you into this world.
Yeah, and I guess like by the end of it, Evan, do you think like John Wick is still a hero character despite like at the end of the day his dog was killed, right? And outside of
Yep.
that, it's like he's doing this because he's just thrown into it. Like how many people does he kill? It's just like outrageous.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, Max, you actually have a kill count here in the notes. He apparently killed at least 439 people throughout these movies.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if
But yeah, I mean, to
I
answer,
don't know if this kill count is necessarily just him or the dogs or Halle Berry or what, but
oh, fair,
certainly
fair.
a lot of deaths in those movies.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to answer your question, I think John Wick is firmly in the hero category versus anti-hero. I mean, I think he's an assassin. He lives in the world of assassins. He's killing people who are coming after him. It's a kill or be killed kind of situation, and he's not killing innocent people. He's not just like finding some Joe Schmo on the street. He lives by some type of code and rules, and even in John Wick 4 when he's being attacked by Tracker, and he has an opportunity to either you know uh, take out Tracker or save Tracker's dog from being killed by the Marquis, his main henchman. He chooses taking out the guy who was about to attack the dog over himself, which ultimately wins Tracker over. But I think that places him for me firmly in the hero category, that he would risk his own life to save the dog.
Yeah, I think I buy that he's a hero. I mean, I certainly like his journey and root for him. I'm certainly not like saying, "Oh God, I hope that he fails," um, at any point. So,
Right.
but Evan, despite like Ballerina coming out soon, do you think that the John Wick franchise has life without Keanu Reeves, or is it just Lionsgate kind of like chasing the ghost?
I don't know. I feel like it might be the latter. It might be them kind of chasing the ghosts. I mean, it will. I've not heard good things about the Continental. I will give the Ballerina a fair shot, despite my not feeling like Ana de Armas is particularly good. I'm sure I'll still watch it and give it a fair shake, but I'm not really sure what legs this franchise has if we're not talking about John Wick, unless they just do a superb job of continuing to build out this world in a way that's like really compelling. I find it hard to believe that they'll be able to like hang their hat on this franchise with other people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's like you think like some of these franchises have a big enough world where they could draw upon other things. I mean, let's take two other big science fiction franchises, right? Like Star Wars, which continuously has to circle around the Skywalkers in some fashion, in order to like
Mm-hmm.
it to be successful, or like even the Matrix, where that world seems like it's primed to have like any amount of characters, stories that you could follow, but I don't think
Right.
like any of them would be anywhere near as interesting.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm coming down to. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Right, and like this Ballerina seems like it's connected enough with John Wick that John Wick appears in the movie. So, um,
Right.
we'll see if that's really the gel that holds it together. I mean, Lionsgate definitely needs more IP, and I think that's why they're constantly making whatever Hunger Games books are coming out into movies. So,
Maybe we'll get a John Wick 5 at some point. Who knows?
all right, I think that just about does it for our John Wick franchise talk. I mean, for me, I really enjoy. I think I enjoy all the movies. It's a series that I can see myself kind of going back here or there. I don't think it's funny, like when we talk about movies, I don't think I'd marathon these ever, because like
Mm-mm.
just like how
No.
exhausting they are as a movie to watch with like the body count and the action, what have you. But um I think each one has its own merits.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and with the exception of 4, which I just saw for the first time, like yesterday, I've gone back and rewatched all the John Wick movies at least once. Like I've seen, 1, 2, and 3 at least 2 times a piece.
Mm-hmm. All right. Before we get to what we've been watching in our movie guessing game, we're going to pause for some station identification, where you've been listening to the It's the Pictures podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Max Colville. You can find me on Blue Sky at maxcolville.com, or look for my name, Max Colville. You can find the podcast at It's the Pictures or It's the Pick Pod on different services, whether they be Blue Sky, Instagram, Letterboxd, what have you. Evan, where can they find you?
I am over every week at Spoiler Piece Theater, the weekly film review podcast. And then you can also follow me on social media. That's, let's see, where am I these days? I'm Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Letterboxd as Real Recon. That's real as in film reel. And Max, I think we forgot to mention that people can send us an email too, right? If they want to get in touch with us.
Yeah, that's true. They can email us at itsthepictures@gmail.com. Feel free to send us whatever your thoughts are on the John Wick movies. If you're excited for
Mm-hmm.
a movie that played at the Cannes Film Festival, or even your thoughts on the new Mission Impossible movie, which I had a chance to review for the Substack newsletter. That's it's
Nice.
thepictures.substack.com. I reviewed Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and also followed that up with a updated post of some of my favorite uh, sequences in the Mission Impossible franchise.
Nice. That's a good article to check out, listeners.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. And if you like the show, please let everybody know that you liked it. You can share the show online. You can give us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Music. Leave us a review, please. It helps us reach a bigger audience and continue to do what we like to do and what you like to hear us do.
Yeah, it's much appreciated. It doesn't cost anything either to tell a friend or to send a review. Just a couple minutes of your time, and we very much appreciate it.
All right, Evan. I have a new entry in the movie guessing game. We skipped it last week due to having
Ooh,
a guest. If you missed the episode, we had Deidre Crimmins on, and we talked about sci-fi uh, horror tropes. You can go back and check out that episode. But this week's movie game is a movie that came out in 1998.
okay.
This movie has, let's see, it's one of its stars is, let's Paul Giamatti is in this movie.
Okay. 1998. Paul Giamatti. Okay. What else we got?
What else do we have here? Uh, Surprisingly, Vin Diesel is in this movie too.
Hmm. Is it Boiler Room?
It is not.
Okay. So Vin Diesel, Paul Giamatti. Oh, Saving Private
It
Ryan.
is Saving Private Ryan. Wow, you got that quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I'd seen it within the last couple of years, and I was like, oh, yeah, Paul Giamatti is in that. And I know Vin Diesel's in it.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, what is a good Memorial Day weekend movie? And of
Mm-hmm.
course, Saving Private Ryan, directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Tom Hanks in the title role, is a fine movie to watch this Memorial Day weekend. If you're hearing this podcast, probably after Memorial Day weekend, it's always great to revisit Saving Private Ryan. I think it's a terrific movie.
Yeah, it's a really well done film.
All right, Evan. Now's the time. What have you been watching?
Okay, so real quick, I want to mention that last week when we had Dee Dee Crimmins on to talk about sci-fi horror movies, she mentioned a movie called Coherence that she highly recommends, and it's one that I've actually been meaning to watch for a long time on her recommendation, and I did, and it was really awesome. So I just wanted to say, Dee Dee was totally right, and it was great, and I had a lot of fun watching it. So just wanted to follow up as a connection to last week's episode. But aside from that, another movie that I saw that was a first time watch that I've been meaning to see for a long time was the Harrison Ford movie Witness, which is turning 40 this year, and it's been on my list for a while. I'm always been a big Harrison Ford fan, and I've been slowly kind of getting to some of his like non Star Wars, Indiana Jones, non Tom Clancy movies from like the 80s and 90s that I haven't caught up with. And so I ended up watching it and I really enjoyed it. I think that Harrison Ford is terrific in it. and I totally get why. I believe he was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar for the movie, or Best Supporting. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is a very interesting performance from him. He normally plays a very kind of grumpy, gruff person, and you definitely see that in this role. But there's some really interesting moments of seeing him be very tender and affectionate and very jovial in places. There's one scene in particular where he's like singing along to a song on the radio and dancing with Kelly McGillis, and it feels very un Harrison Ford, and I think that's what makes it great. But it has a lot of like hallmark Harrison Ford, like the Harrison Ford yell that he does when he's like stressed out at people. That's really great, and I just think it's a really well done story. So for listeners, if you're not familiar with it, Harrison Ford plays a cop in the film. Lucas Haas plays an Amish child, and Kelly McGillis plays his mother. And they're in a train station, and he witnesses a murder in the train station. And so Harrison Ford, who's a cop, he takes them in and is trying to figure out, who committed the murder. Turns out it was a cop that killed another cop. And so he ends up having to go on the run with them back to their home, there and live among the Amish while he's kind of like hiding out there. And so that's really interesting dynamic, seeing him out of his element, seeing him, steeped in Amish culture and, doing things like all the chores on the farm and participating in a barn raising. And yeah, I thought it was a really, really great movie, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the like action elements, the confrontation with the corrupt cops toward the end, and yeah, the kind of forbidden kind of romance angle between him and Kelly McGillis, and how they really want to be together, but they're just from different worlds, and it's just never gonna work. And yeah, I was really glad that I finally checked this one out, finally crossed it off the list, because I think Witness is really great. I mean, it's definitely has its flaws, and I think it's not a perfect movie, but I think on balance it is very well done, and yeah, highly recommend checking out Witness.
It's funny, Evan, that you picked a Witness, because this is also another movie that I've been looking at for a long time myself. I think like Arrow has a release of it also in like 4K, but this is was directed by Peter
Mm-hmm.
Weir, who is known for like The Truman Show and Master and Commander and Picnic at Hanging Rock, and I love all those movies. So I'm like, I definitely
Mm-hmm.
owe it to myself to see Witness.
Yeah, you definitely do. I will be curious to hear what you think. And it adds. I have like a pantheon of great Harrison Ford facial expressions in movies. One of my favorites is in the scene in Working Girl where he angrily is drinking two drinks like with the straws. And in this one, he has a really amazing face that he makes when he's sitting down with the mother and the son, and they're about to eat hot dogs, and he takes like a bite of his hot dog, and then they pause to do like a prayer, and he has the hot dog in his mouth, and he's not showing it. He has this like really put out expression. It's friggin' hilarious. I had to rewind and watch it again. It was so funny.
I'm gonna assume that you're a fan of The Fugitive, and I just want to know like how like action does this like match up with that?
Yes, love The Fugitive. This is not very
Okay.
actiony by comparison. I would say it's much more drama. There's a couple of action scenes in the movie. One is when they figure out like the corrupt cop played by Danny Glover is actually realizes that Harrison Ford is onto him, and and tries to take him out inside a parking garage, and that's a pretty intense sequence. And then later, when the corrupt cops figure out that he's where he is, then there's like a showdown at the farm
Hmm.
where he's been staying, and a confrontation with these like three cops. That's pretty actiony, but there's no it can't doesn't hold a candle to The Fugitive, which is like just kind of nonstop chase
Yeah.
action sequences.
All right. Thanks for sharing about Witness. I don't know if I plugged that I had seen this last time, Evan, and you can probably remind me if I talked about it. But like, did I talk about watching Tombstone last time?
Hmm. I'm trying to remember. I think you did.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think you talked
If
about
I already talked
Tombstone
about
last time.
Tombstone, it's still on my mind because like I enjoyed watching it. So that says a lot about Tombstone.
Yeah. What else have you been watching though?
So I asked for a screener of an upcoming French film called Jane Austen Wrecked My Life. It is being released by Sony Pictures Classics, and I guess like I was kind of interested in it. I had just recently watched Pride and Prejudice again for its 20th anniversary. That's the one with Keira Knightley in it, and I enjoyed watching that again, having not seen it in a good long time. So I was like, I'm kind of on Jane Austen interest. I mean, my wife is very much into Jane Austen too, and I watched this
Mm-hmm.
movie, and it's pretty cute. The lead actress works at a bookstore, and you know, she has aspirations of writing her own novel, and she has like an on again off again boyfriend, or like he's maybe not even a boyfriend, he's just like a best friend, and like the relationship doesn't really go anywhere, and he kind of like is interested in her a little bit, and he decides that having seen like her latest um treatment for a novel, he sends it to this place, which is like the Jane Austen residency retreat, and she's like shocked. She's like, I can't go. I can't be in a car because there was a traumatic event with cars that kind of like makes it so that she can't be in a car, and
Mm-hmm.
but she finds the will, and she gets there, and she meets this guy there who's like the great 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 nephew of Jane Austen, and you know he is kind of awkward at first and what have you, and um but she becomes kind of interested in him and his thing that's going on, but at the same time the friend that kind of helped her get there shows up, and he's like, oh, I'm here, we should have a relationship, and she she doesn't know how to handle it, and so there's a little love triangle, but uh yeah, I mean it was cute. I mean, I don't know like how much like Jane Austen like I felt that it really was like it's maybe it's Jane Austen without hammering it home, which I appreciated, and also there's some like funny gags that I don't think they would ever be able to get away with in America, just because like how prudish we are. That I like appreciated that it's French. Um, but
Are they like raunchy gags or things like that?
yeah, I guess this isn't much of a spoiler, but she's like she gets undressed and she's naked, and she like opens this door, and on the other side is like the nephew, and he's like sees her naked, and he's like, and she's like, oh my god, and and like he's like, oh, and I'm like, they would never do that in a romantic comedy in America.
That's true. That probably would not happen.
Yeah, so I just like I appreciated that there's something like that kind of just like existed in a romantic comedy, and no, it's cute, and certainly if you're looking for something along those lines, something not super heavy, I think that Jane Austen Wrecked My Life is fits the bill pretty nicely.
That sounds good.
I think it's gonna come out like a limited release in theaters. I think there's some theaters in Boston that are carrying it and showing it, so try to find it there.
Sweet.
All right, I think that just about wraps up our episode, Evan.
Yeah, it was a fun one. Liked talking about John Wick, one of my favorite franchises. It was really interesting too, hearing the insights from the documentary, which I haven't had a chance to watch. So I was glad you caught up with that.
I'm glad that you caught up with Chapter 4.
Me too. I'm glad I finally can say I've watched it, and now I don't need to need to watch it for a while again.
Yeah. um, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We have planned to talk about Jaws and for occasion of its 50th anniversary. Maybe have a guest on for the show for that. I'm really looking forward to that, Evan. That's one of my all-time favorite movies, and just the opportunity to talk about it in depth will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. Jaws is one of my favorites as well, so that'll be a fun episode.
All right. Until then, I hope everybody had a nice Memorial Day weekend, and hopefully find some good movies to watch coming up before we talk to you again soon. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.